Morality is an interesting concept, especially because there's so many arguments surrounding it. People somehow try to prove that humans are either inherently good or inherently evil, but why do we have to be either one? Religion is tied strongly to this argument though. Since it's seen as a kind of moral enforcer, people sometimes assume that there's no such thing as secular morality. But it's such a human thing to try and figure out our own nature, and so we ask questions. Is morality a human creation? Does morality derive from religion? Is morality subjective? Let's start with the first one. Yes, morality is a human creation, unless you want to believe that God created morality. So let's just say that morality is a creation of a highly conscious mind. But how do we really know this? Well, animals don't seem to have any remorse for their prey, and that's pretty understandable. Evolution created animals so that they can survive, and in order for them to survive, they need to be able to kill. So how come humans are different? We were animals ourselves once, and most of us don't show remorse for the animals that we eat nowadays either. So how come we suddenly feel moral obligations to each other? One could assume that our intelligence brought along a sense of morality. Or maybe moral compasses are somewhat hereditary, and so the moral values of our ancestors are the ones that shape society today. But where and how did morality originate? All kinds of animals and even apes show signs of infighting. Often, male apes create groups that raid each other's territories, often trying to kill their enemies. So, there must have been some point in history when we found a sense of compassion for each other. Perhaps it happened when humans started to form larger settlements. I say this because I assume that that's when humans began having safer lives. After agriculture, hunting was not as necessary, and most dangers of the wild were most likely removed. Therefore, as humans were given safer lives, their violent survival tendencies would have begun to disappear. Yet, back then, there still remained the concept of an enemy. War among tribes and eventually empires shows that different morals apply for different kinds of people. It's not okay to kill a neighbor, but it's okay to kill the enemy. And to be fair, not a lot has changed from then till now, the only difference being that there are a lot more groups of people, now called countries, and that fighting amongst them is relatively rare. So it does seem that somewhere along the way humans began to respect their enemies to some extent as well. And now we have a somewhat universal morality. A lot of these moral values are enforced by law, but a lot also aren't. It seems that morals are just a bunch of societal norms that we keep perpetuating. And it doesn't seem like they're built into us either, since they've changed through the ages. So one's own morals are heavily reliant on the culture they grew up in, again, showing that morals are more built into society than they are built into humans. Only that it seems as though our individual moral responsibilities are beginning to disappear. We began to care for each other when we built communities, and our ancestors realized that as a part of a community, we have a responsibility to give something back. But now we live in cities, where nobody knows anybody, where we have just become one in a million, where if you just walked past a collapsed man or a person being mugged, you wouldn't be blamed because nobody will ever recognize you again. People now have the option to think, there's so many others around, and I don't have the energy right now, so someone else will deal with it. The second question that I mentioned asked whether morality derives from religion, and to be honest, it's very hard to tell. Although the most reasonable answer would be that morality did not begin with religion, but that it was certainly spread by religion. What is very interesting, though, is that religious morals and societal morals occasionally clash nowadays. Examples of this would be the legalization of certain drugs, abortion, and other examples alike. Of course, these topics have massive amounts of people on either side of the arguments, so it's hard to call them societal values. But this brings us to our next question. Is morality subjective? And I'd be leaning towards yes, since morality is a human construct, and everyone seems to have their own idea of it. It's very unlikely that there is such a thing as one true set of ethical rules. And you could take it even further and say that there may not really be such a thing as a good or bad person, just a good or bad action. I mean, think about it. If some people with mental afflictions may, instead of going to prison for a crime, be treated at an institution, how come we don't consider the ability to kill another human a mental affliction? Truth is that we're all just differently programmed machines, so how come one person with a flawed moral compass is deranged while the other is evil? I'm not saying that there's no such thing as mental afflictions, and I'm not saying that the legal system should be changed. I'm just saying that, in truth, there's no such thing as an evil person. So, those were the three big questions of morality. I mean, at least the ones I can answer. But there's a lot of other stuff out there, and the insanity of our own existence reaches further than we can possibly comprehend all the time. But until we reach a point of having godly amounts of knowledge, we're just stuck here wondering.